want to plug this in where we have this on top. We'll want to make sure that we come in from the back side here. But we're going to solder on this side. So I'm going to put this in here, and this is the leaded solder. And so here we go. That's a pretty good connection. I'll go ahead and do one more right now, and then check to make sure that everything is actually visible on the video. It is possible to heat the pads up on a PCB too hot, and then they'll release. So that's something to look out for. So I have my soldering iron. I'm going to clean off the tip. Heat up the pen and pad. Apply solder. Leave that on for another second. And now it's hardened. I'll do that one more. For this ground pen, I'm going to try to do a cold joint. So it's not as bad as I would have liked, but I'm going to go ahead and finish cleaning this one up. So I'm going to reapply the solder. It's going to melt again. I'm going to apply just a little bit more. And now we have a good connection. So here's what it looks like from the side. And now if I were to plug this into a breadboard, it'll shine right in. And so now I'll have access to each of these pins along the corresponding row in the breadboard. Let's solder in the audio clamp connector now. I want to make sure that the clamps are facing outward. So I'm going to put these under here. I'm going to solder there. And the fumes are being sucked away by the fume extractor over here. We also want to solder the speaker. So on the back of that here, this is a 4 ohm speaker, so that's how much resistance there is in driving it, and 3 watts is the maximum safe power that can be absorbed by the speaker. So we don't want to do anything that would end up putting more power on it. We have 2 solder connection points right here. So we are going to take some speaker wire and solder that on. The speaker wire is 2 strands of wire that are put together. They're twisted. I'm going to cut about 6 or 10 inches of that off using wire cutters. So what these have are some cutters here, and then the hole there is a specific size to be able to get the insulation off from around the wire. We set that size with this dial over here. So we mostly work with 24 gauge wire, so that lets it close nice and small. We also have a lot of these wire cutters, which also work, but they're fairly poorly designed in that you can't clamp them shut if we're at 24 gauge settings, which annoys me. So I use these. So I have these here. What I'll try to do instead is put these cutting edge right along between the middle of these. So now that's separated, I'm going to put one of those wire ends into the wire clipper and clamp it down and then pull it away. Remember, we don't want there to be any chance of the wires from one of these lines to end up coming in contact with the other. So we're going to keep those apart a bit. Now bring your speaker back over here. This is one of those times where I need to hold the wire in place, and I need the soldering iron, and I need the solder. Too many things. In this case, we have some holes in here, so that's helpful. If you're not the best way or a way to do this, I'm going to try to reach in here and grab this and twist it back around, because I want to solder all of that together on there. Process this last time. We're just going to want to heat up both of the things we want to solder together, and then apply the solder to it. And that'll solidify down, and hopefully we should have a good connection now. Remember, whenever you apply the solder, it is initially very hot, so don't be too quick to reach in and grab whatever it was that you were soldering. Grab the iron and scrape off, applying heat, putting in a few millimeters of the solder, and then that's done. Now we need to expose the other side of the wire. Let's put that into the audio amplifier here. So we're going to need a tiny flathead screwdriver. So we have several of those around the lab. These are open right now. Now we get them both in at the same time. and then clamp them both down. I think we shall have an easier time of it. All right, so there we go. Those are in there. This isn't a very good, robust connection right here, so we'll want to be careful about bending these wires because the metal will start to fray and then will snap if we do too much wire bending. Having this in breadboard might even be a good idea if this were on the other side, so it's less likely that these wires are going to be disturbed. But now we have our whole system here, or at least so far, with the power amplifier and the speaker. If we wanted to complete this, then we might have ground and maybe 5 volts along these power lines, and then on the second pin and ground on this furthest pin. So I'm going to connect the ground onto that line and 5 volts onto what happens to be line 5. The shutdown pin is here, and then our audio plus and audio minus are here. I'll talk about what those pins do a little bit later. But now we could apply DC voltage onto these power rails to power this chip, which will then provide enough power to the speaker to drive it.